Lots going on through the state of Florida today, particularly pertaining to wildlife. Trump, of course, makes tons of new announcements. Let's get into it with the same old podcast. I'm your host today, Brandon Rahi. I'm flying solo. Let's see if I can tackle the news. So, a couple things I want to go over with you guys today. One, the Trump administration is announcing they will pay illegal aliens to self-deport on commercial flights. The flights will be paid for, plus illegal aliens will be getting a $1,000 stipend. Number two, Florida will now ban fluoride in the drinking water statewide. Governor Ron DeSantis made an announcement, so we'll get into some of that. Number three, FWC kills 3 black bears after a deadly attack near Big Cypress in Collier County. I'd love to cover that one. I'm familiar with that area and spent a lot of time there, so I want to touch on that and some of my thoughts on FWC. Also, alligator attacks and kills a woman canoeing with her husband on Lake Kissimmee in the state of Florida. Excited to get to that story. I'm very sorry to hear that someone lost her life. And fifth and finally, updating the next commission meeting for the FWC. So let's get into it. First on the agenda today, the Trump administration is announcing they will pay the illegal aliens to self-deport on commercial flights. This is a interesting conversation and want to see what you guys think about this. So the flight will be paid for, plus there will be a $1,000 stipend given to the illegal immigrants. The price of deportation is normally $17,000. Under this system, it would be $4,500. That's a savings of 70%. So healthy savings if you're looking at it just from that perspective. And a quote from NOEM, if you are if you are here illegally, self-deportation is the best, safest, and most cost-effective way to leave the United States to avoid arrest. So some of the things we've seen since Trump got into office is they've discussed all of the incentives for why you should self-deport. So one of the main reasons why you should do that is so that you remain eligible to re-enter the country at a later date through the legal means. So that was obviously a pretty big consequence, right? If you get caught in the United States and deported, you are no longer eligible to re-enter the country. What was the time frame on that? For the next 10 or 20 years or something to that effect. So it was a very heavy penalty. The chances of you coming into the U.S. through the remainder of your life was near zero. So that was a pretty healthy reason to self-deport. But now they're adding this paid for flight, commercial flight, plus the $1,000 stipend. So now we're wondering, is this a good idea? Is this a way to handle this? Obviously, this is a very expensive endeavor. This is one of the main problems with open borders and letting everybody just pour through, is that it's super, super expensive to A, facilitate them within the country, but then B, get them out of the country. And so here are some of the comments. Let's deflect to some of the comments here. This is on Instagram. This person saying, do not incentivize aliens. They'll pour in, receive $1,000 to leave. They should pay for breaking the law, not rewarding them. Another person is saying they'll just keep coming back for more money. 10 deportations, easy 10K, and free plane rides. Another one. Some guy is going to turn himself into a millionaire like this. That's pretty funny. There have definitely been case studies worldwide where people have had bounties on things. There was this famous one over in India where they had a bounty on king cobras. And so for every cobra that you turned in, you'd get X amount of dollars. Obviously it's not dollars there, but you'd get X amount of money. And the long-term result was that people started breeding cobras so that they could turn them in. And then when the government realized that the bounty was being collected by breeders, they turned off the bounty. So what did the breeders do with their cobras? They let them go. So now the cobra population actually went up. So counterproductive policy. So obviously these people are alluding to this type of commentary. Having illegals deport reduces manpower and expense. Some people will never around business operations, and it shows. There's so much cost and labor and risk in deporting these people. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. So interesting comments. I'm not sure what I think about this. I don't know that I've put the intellectual thought into this time-wise. Definitely interesting. I mean, I am all for, on the economic side, I am all for getting the illegals out of this country as fast as humane and as cheaply as humanly possible. I do not think this burden should fall on the American taxpayer at all. I mean, it obviously is going to, no matter what, whether you're paying ICE to do the work for us, whether you're paying this stipend, the commercial flights being paid for, etc. This is going to add up to an insane dollar amount at the end of the day to get these illegals out of the country. But, I don't know. I don't have anything to compare this to as far as logistics. Are they going to get the memo? Do they have to report somehow to get this $1,000 stipend? Obviously, they have to come in and go through the system for the official first time, maybe, where they're actually giving their name and getting ID'd and having their photos taken and all these things in order to collect this $1,000 stipend and be put on a commercial flight. Are we putting other people at risk by putting them on the flights? Who else is on this plane? Are these commercial flights exclusive to just these deportation missions, that sort of thing? Or are they just kind of, deadheading along on a normal commercial flight with U.S. citizens? So interesting topic. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. This is an interesting one. I think this could be debated for quite a while. Okay, moving on. I'm going to keep the show moving today. Number 2, Florida will now ban fluoride in the drinking water statewide. I've got a little clip here I'm going to play for, this is coming from FloridaVoiceNews.com, and this is their coverage of Ron DeSantis at his little press briefing. So let's get into this.
We're going to be talking about 2 pieces of legislation that I will sign. The first is SB 700. Now, there's a lot more to that, and we'll probably talk about that. The commissioner and I will do something in the near future to highlight some of the other provisions. But what this does with respect to putting fluoride in the water supply is it basically doesn't allow that anymore in the state of Florida. It's forced medication when they're jamming fluoride into your water supply. And they did it because, if you have fluoride, it'll help with dental. And I'm not saying that's not true, but we have other ways where people can get access to fluoride. When you do this in the water supply, you're taking away a choice of someone who may not want to have overexposure to fluoride. And there have been studies done, and Joe will talk about it when he comes up, that there are impacts to pregnant women, to children, about having too much of this. And you don't even have to agree with that analysis, but at the end of the day, we should all agree that we want people to be able to make informed consent, have informed consent when it comes to these things. Jamming fluoride in the water supply, irrespective of whatever for the teeth, when you can get that other ways, that's impinging on other people's ability, to have access to water in ways that they may not want to be exposed to.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well put. I'm a big believer in informed consent, whether we're talking about vaccines or any medical thing that we pursue, any of the chemicals in our food, etc. So I think this is pretty consistent with the MAHA movement, right? Trying to get America healthy again. I think over the last several decades, we've seen this obvious decline in our health, both physically and mentally. And I think the trends with those conditions are remarkably in alignment with the trends in increases in chemicals and things like this that have been put into our system. So what is the role of government? I think it's to keep our people safe and give us a opportunity to flourish in our own way. But ultimately, it's to get out of our way. So something a government would be involved in would be providing safe and clean drinking water. And this is an example of, well, is it safe? Sure, we've got en masse, we have clean drinking water, but how safe is it really? Do we need fluoride in there? Why don't we just filter our water down to pure H2O with nothing else in it? People can resource the other things, such as fluoride, in some other supplemental capacity. If people want to supplement their lifestyles with vitamins or XYZ, they should be able to do that on their own and make their own informed decisions there. But forcing everyone to have fluoride in the system is certainly a questionable decision. And I personally would rather not have it in the water. I would rather supplement in my own way, shape, or form through my lifestyle versus have the government force that on me, where largely we weren't even necessarily informed about the quantities or the side effects that could be going on with it. So on average, when I'm unsure about something, I am probably going to err on the side of less government intervention versus more government involvement. And this is another case of that. So I don't think that the pros outweigh the cons here. And if they're showing that there are negative consequences to pregnant women or anyone for that matter, that right there is a big enough concern for me to remove it, and people can source fluoride elsewhere and incorporate into their lifestyles elsewhere on an individual basis versus en masse. So anyway, what do you guys think in the comments? Fluoride in the water, good, bad, indifferent? How do you guys feel? All right, moving on. Topic number 3. FWC kills 3 bears after a deadly attack near Big Cypress, Collier County, Florida. So this is in Southwest Florida. This is my home turf here. So I am reading this from winknews.com. A tragic bear attack in Collier County claimed the lives of 89-year-old Robert Markle and his dog, triggering swift action from the FWC. The incident occurred along State Road 29 near Jerome, just south of Big Cypress Wildlife Management Area. FWC's executive director, Roger Young, said personnel killed 3 bears overnight, all males, with one weighing more than 400 pounds. However, it's not yet confirmed if any of these bears were responsible for the attack. We have traps and cameras set up, and we have our law enforcement officers who are able to, shoot if necessary, said Young, odd quote. Neighbors and visitors in the Jerome area expressed disbelief over the attack. A traveler commented on the unusual nature of the incident. If you say a gator attacked someone, maybe because that's what they're used to. But something like this is not normal for this area, the traveler said. The details of how the attack unfolded remain unclear, blah, blah, blah. At the end of this, another quote from FWC's Young. FWC is committed to do all we can to bring closure to the Markle family after this event. Oof. So first and foremost, my condolences to the Markle family. I'm very sorry that you lost someone, that you lost Robert there. That's tough. This is obviously very, very low odds for this sort of thing to happen, especially here in the state of Florida, especially with a black bear. These incidents are extremely rare. That being said, I totally disagree with how FWC has handled this. Yes, they should take immediate action to reduce risk to anyone else, any further attacks, especially if a bear has done one attack. Statistically, they may be more likely to do another attack. However, again, this is extremely rare. So for them to just go out and basically shoot on sight any bears in the area, I think is a horrible decision on FWC's part. Even if one of those bears was the criminal in this case, was the correct bear, they killed 2 bears that shouldn't have been killed. If there happened to be more than one bear involved, let's say hypothetically 2 of them were involved, they still killed a bear that didn't need to be killed. And the odds of 3 bears teaming up to perform this sort of attack is just absolutely unheard of. So I don't know why they wouldn't have gone out and tranquilized any bears that they see in the area and detain them safely for humans in the area and safely for the bears until it's determined through DNA testing that you've got the guilty party, and then move forward with the correct steps. But just going out and shooting bears on site seems a little insane to me. I don't know where. I can understand that there's an urgency for an immediate threat and wanting to neutralize an immediate threat, but I think you can neutralize a bear via tranquilizer methods if you're already within, rifle range of said bear and the area and all those things. So I disagree with how FWC's handled this. I tend to disagree with how they handle just about everything these days, unfortunately, and this is consistent with that. And so unfortunately, they turned a tragedy into another tragedy. They just layered it on. Instead of taking a tragedy for poor Robert Markle and his family, they could have done everything they can to minimize exaggerating that. And I think all they did was magnify it. And shame on FWC for handling this way. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what the DNA testing provides, I believe, let me navigate here to winknews.com. I'm going to jump around in this article a little bit, but there's a quote here from George Raynaud from the FWC. Both of these incidents did happen sometime apart. They're referring to the gentleman and his dog. His dog was also found dead. They did not occur at the same exact time, and they were found reasonably within a couple hundred yards of the area. Wink News contacted Markle's family, who said he had recently beaten kidney cancer. Because two corpses were found so far apart, officials have not verified whether the same bear is responsible. Quote, "We do know it was a bear attack. We don't know if it was the same bear or multiple bears," end quote, said Renaud. The FWC captured a bear just south of Big Cypress, WMA, along State Road 29 late Monday night, but have not confirmed whether it was responsible for either of the deaths. I don't know if that's a separate bear or one of the three that were killed, or that's using the word captured. So we'll see. Statistics. This article goes on to say the state of Florida is home to more than 4,000 black bears, and one attack happened in Lee County in Fort Myers in 2009, and most recently on January 9th of 2018. So that's the most recent attack according to this article, is 2018. So that's how rare this is. University of Florida will be doing the testing to determine if it was the animal who killed Markle and his dog. So hopefully one of the bears that was killed comes back to be the offender in this case. I would hate for bears to have been killed if they didn't have anything to do with it. And in my wildlife experience, a bear relocating a kill, dragging off a kill from a kill site to end up hundreds of yards later, that is completely normal. So for them to take a kill site A and compare that to a kill site B that's only a couple hundred yards away, that's well within the wheelhouse of a black bear dragging its kill around, in my experience. So that doesn't tell me that there were multiple bears attacking. I'm not sure why they're drawing that conclusion. If I'm mistaken on that, absolutely let me know. Tear me apart in the comments. But bears are more than capable of dragging off, especially if you had just a dog. I mean, a bear, a 400-pound bear, let's say, dragging off an average dog. I don't know what kind of dog it was, but dragging off a dog, I mean, that's an easy carry. That's a very easy carry for a black bear. So that's no big feat. Okay, moving on. Sticking with the theme of animal encounters here, topic 4 I want to go over today is that an alligator attack killed a woman while she was canoeing with her husband on Lake Kissimmee here in Florida. This is just awful. As many alligators as we have here in the state, it's a thriving population at this point. They were protected for quite a while. Man, there are alligators just absolutely everywhere, and pretty much every body of water you're going to touch. And this is very unfortunate. So I am now on cbsnews.com. An alligator attacked and killed a woman who was canoeing with her husband on a Central Florida lake Tuesday afternoon, authorities said, after her spouse tried unsuccessfully to fight off the predator. The attack occurred near the mouth of Tiger Creek into Lake Kissimmee, south of Orlando, the Florida FWC said. At a news conference Wednesday, said the woman, FWC, not sure who that is, Evan Laskowski, said the woman, at a news conference Wednesday, FWC Evan Laskowski said the woman, 61 years old from Davenport, Florida, was sitting in the bow of a 14-foot canoe when the attack happened. She and her husband were in about 2.5 feet of water when the boat passed over a large alligator. The alligator thrashed and tipped the canoe over. Both individuals ended up in the water. She ended up on top of the alligator in the water and was bitten. Her husband attempted to intervene but was unsuccessful. That's just awful. Can't imagine him fighting for his wife's life. The woman was later recovered from the water and declared dead. Polk County Sheriff's Office deputies and Marine units assisted with the search and recovery. A Sheriff's Office radio transmission of the incident was obtained by CBS affiliate WKMG. Quote, Gator grabbed her out of the canoe, end quote. A sheriff's deputy can be heard saying, quote, he tried to fight the gator off. We're at the last place he saw her. He left the paddle here where he last saw her at, end quote. Terrible. And this goes on to give some alligator statistics and tips and tricks to how to stay safe. So this is awful. This didn't actually report the name on this article. I'm sure that's out somewhere now. But anyway, this is terrible. So again, I've been in Florida my whole life, and I have canoed and kayaked and paddleboarded directly over top of alligators of basically all sizes. It's something I've never really shied away from because an incident like this is so rare. But a big bull gator, I don't know the size of the gator in this incident, but a big bull gator being territorial or just willing to lash out at anything in its space would certainly easily dump a canoe over. It does not take a massive gator for a lot of intensity and a lot of force production to get you out of your boat. So kayakers, canoers should always be wary in alligator areas, which again is pretty much all of Florida. So be aware of your surroundings, keep your head on a swivel, have backup plans, be prepared. Hopefully you're high level of fitness. You've got great swimming abilities. You've got at least a knife on you. And of course you should know how to deal with wildlife if you're going to go out and play in nature. I do not blame the animal in this case. I'm very sorry to the family. My condolences go out to them. I can't imagine what he's going through right now. All of the mind games that he's playing right now have to be 10 out of 10. I mean, being through that traumatic experience in the first place, wrestling an alligator with your bare hands while your wife's, body or appendage is trapped in its jaws. What a terrible moment to have to fight through. And then losing that battle must be absolutely awful. And so my condolences go out to them. Do your research on how to defend against alligators, what their vulnerable spots are, eyes and nose, the snout, that kind of thing. And hopefully you're as prepared as you possibly can be during a wildlife encounter, but we are not the apex predator in a scenario like that. Our alligators, our Burmese pythons, obviously our sharks, and then elsewhere in the country, all the bears and everything else, the bigger critters elsewhere, apex predators in their respective areas. So terrible loss. Okay, moving on. So all of that animal encounter, death and destruction. What a terrible couple days. On the lighter side, in other bear news, there was a bear spotted in St. Augustine, Florida. St. Augustine is our nation's oldest city, and the downtown area is extremely developed. I mean, it is residential all throughout the neighborhoods. And then, of course, there's the commercial strip, very, very, very heavy in tourism. It is known for its Nights of Lights events and the famous fort downtown, the Castillo de San Marco. And there's tons of history here. So not really a spot for a black bear. However, the other night, a black bear was seen in the absolute heart of downtown on St. George Street, one of the most famous streets in St. Augustine. And of course, police went into pursuit mode with their AR-15s to try to chase it on. And allegedly FWC somehow, maybe, I'm assuming, tranquilized it or trapped it somehow and relocated it to a wooded area. The bear did no harm. It didn't threaten anyone. So the question lies, and conversations I'm having with people here locally are, how the heck did that bear get there? Where in the heck did it come from? If you kind of look on a Google map for St. Augustine and you compare the distances from St. George Street in the heart of downtown, again, one of the most densely populated areas, that bear would have had to travel a pretty good ways to get onto St. George Street. So we're wondering, where in the heck did this thing come from? One of the theories that I've come up with is, did some local yokel come up with a plan to just put out a little bit of chaos in the world like the Joker and trap a bear or tranquilize a bear and relocate it and drop it off in the middle of St. Augustine just for kicks to see the chaos unfold, and they could take that little secret to the grave? Just a little theory of mine. That's something somebody from Florida would do and think that that's funny. which maybe it is if it didn't cause any harm. Obviously, highly illegal, but anyway, it's caused a stir here locally, and we'll see what comes of it. Probably nothing. I think the city and all the local residents, business owners, anyone with security cameras downtown should be scrolling through their footage of that night to see if anything like that happened, and they could maybe, backpedal where the bear was and just keep rewinding that through the night to see where his entry was, if it wasn't humans involved. Where did that bear come from? Did it come from the north end of town? Did it come from straight west? Did it happen to come from the south somewhere? Although there's nowhere to go from the south because it's kind of downtown ends up being a peninsula on the southern end. But where in the heck did this thing come from? So can we trace it back to its origins and kind of see which wooded area it came from? Because it must have really gone a long ways, and there should be a chain of events there on security footage that should show that if everybody dug into it. So that's how I would pursue that if I was investigating that matter first. Okay, so anyway, moving on. Last but not least, this is more of an announcement and an encouragement for people to get involved. So the next FWC commission meeting, which these are these quarterly public meetings, is happening May 21st and May 22nd, starting at 8:30 a.m. This one's going to be in Ocala, Florida, so pretty central. College of Central Florida, the Ewers Century Center Klein Conference Center. So again, May 21st, May 22nd, FWC commission meeting. Why am I announcing this? Why am I bringing this up? What does this matter? If you are a Florida resident and you care at all about how the FWC is handling the state of conservation or anything regarding wildlife, this is the place to go to let your voice be heard. So make a plan, have conversations with people, do your research. If you're part of just the public speaking, like the public comment section, you'll get 3 minutes on the clock to go up to the podium and talk directly to the commission. Now, from personal experience, they're sitting there thinking about anything other than what you're saying. I do not feel, in my experience and from what I've witnessed at multiple commission hearings, I do not feel that they are actually listening to what's being said. I think they have their minds made up on how they're going to do business, how they're going to conduct themselves. And you, as a speaker, are wasting 3 minutes of their time. And they are counting down the seconds until you walk away from that podium. And the majority of the public comments in the meetings that I have attended have definitely been negative towards the commission and how they're handling themselves and how they're conducting business regarding many, many issues. Obviously, hunting and fishing regulations. A huge one that I've seen at every hearing is the spraying that they do. All of the chemicals that they spray in our ponds, lakes, and waterways, and how many animals that they kill every year because of that spraying. And people are begging and pleading for them to stop the spraying. And you need some data to back that up. But of course, they continue claiming things like, well, the data shows that it works and doesn't affect anything, which brings you forward to, 2019 and beyond with all the COVID crap that we heard from the government that you absolutely can't believe. And so it just feels like a slap in the face for them to quote some of the things that they quote. And how are you as a private citizen supposed to provide data to object to what they're doing? And that's a tough one. You can show them, a million photos of all the dead fish and alligators that pop up right after they spray, birds, turtles, the whole shebang. They just don't seem to care. And people that have been in Florida their whole lives, you get some of these old timers, these 70-plus-year-old men. They're like, I've been living on that lake my whole life. And over the last 20 years, or however long the FWC's been around, 26 years. It started in 1999, I believe. That since they've started these aggressive spraying maneuvers, and they have seen the massive destruction in wildlife. And this begs the question. I mean, I am privy to tons of incidents where the FWC has shot first and asked questions later. And the bear incident that we talked about earlier today is no different. There's, the Holy Thursday massacre where they massacred that man's, constrictors, all those snakes. And they never have any accountability. There's never any recourse for any of this. I would possibly go as far as to say, I wonder if the FWC has killed more animals than they have saved. I think hunting and fishing regulations to some point need to exist to a certain degree. But again, as I said earlier, on average, if I'm ever put to a decision where should we have more or less government intervention, I'm going to err on the side of less. They do everything wrong. They seem to interfere with just about everything, from adding fluoride to our water to adding chemical sprays for whatever, fertilizers, pesticides, et cetera, to our waterways, which has a million negative side effects. And all they want to promote is the one good thing that they think it might do, which maybe is in question on its own. So I think we should take a step back on every single decision that's made. And this would be both personally in your life and definitely on a government level. Are you doing something just because it feels good to take action and do something? Or are you doing something because it works? And the pros far outweigh the cons. And I don't think we look at anything like that anymore. I think the knee-jerk reaction is we've just got to do something. There's a problem, so we've got to take action. And I don't think that's a good policy at all. You can spend time trying to come up with a plan that you think will work, that has the most return on investment with the least amount of consequence, whether that be cost, side effects, harmful byproducts, whatever it is. And if you can't spend the time coming up with that master, first draft, then you shouldn't do it. And if you do come up with a great first draft that clearly outlines the plan, and you should also be theorizing on what the side effects might be and the consequences might be, you should be fluid enough in your decision making to see any evidence that comes from that plan and tweak your plan accordingly. If you apply your plan for 6 months or 12 months and you see evidence to the contrary that, wait a minute, there are more side effects to this thing than we thought, and our intended effects aren't as good as we thought, then correct course, reel it back, pull it back in, stop, restructure and try something else. But I don't see signs at large in our government where they apply a new agency, a new policy, a new this, a new that. They never seem to reel it back. I don't want to get into politics in this episode any further than I've already gotten, but there are many, many examples of this, right? Our income tax, all these things that were supposed to be temporary or this or that. And, we started with 4 agencies. The government started with 4 agencies, and now we're at over 400. They've gone 100x on agencies, and they don't ever seem to go away. They only seem to add more and more agencies. And we'll go into that in some other episode. I want to try to keep this one brief. So anyway, full circle back to my 5th point. FWC commission meeting, May 21st, May 22nd. This is your opportunity to go speak to the commission. Now, I'll tell you from personal experience, you may go up with a very articulate 3 minutes with great points, and you're going to walk away from that feeling probably defeated. And in my experience, I've even had commissioners come up and shake my hand afterwards and say, hey, we're going to get into this. We're going to look into this. And then nothing. No matter what facts you present, no matter what evidence you present, they just don't care. They don't want to be hassled. They don't want to be bothered. They're probably doing the least amount of work necessary. I would say, like most people in government, the least amount of work necessary to retain their position, which benefits them somehow on the side. And that is why they're there. They are not there, in my opinion, in the interest of in this case, the residents of Florida or federally American citizens. I just don't see it. So that's your chance to speak out and go share your 3 minutes. And maybe if enough people get involved, like they did recently with all the state park development plans, they can actually give them pause. It's hard to ignore a crazy amount of squeaky wheels, and just hopefully they're squeaky in the right direction with logic and reasoning and not just all feelings, but bringing some facts. So anyway, interesting week in the state of Florida, all this wildlife stuff, bear attacks, alligator attacks, dead people, dead bears, a lot of disappointment there. Again, my condolences go out to the families of those that have been lost. And I guess that'll wrap this up. So feels like same old a lot. Anytime I talk about government, the wildlife stuff doesn't feel like the same old, but government, certainly. Thanks for joining us on the Same Old Podcast. I'm Brandon. Catch you on the next episode.